Hello, welcome back. We are diving into tip number 13, which is invest in you. I'm Danielle, by the way, and this is Chris. And what comes to mind to you when you think about investing in you? Why are you already laughing?
Because you just make me smile.
Okay, well, great.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time over the last 12 videos talking about serving the other person.
Well, I thought he was going to say we spent a lot of time in the last 5 minutes preparing for this tool.
No, not entirely true. But we've talked a lot about investing in the other person and giving to the other person and serving the other person, which is obviously super important. But it's also important to realize that you are still an individual. And God has still given each one of us individual desires and individual gifts.
Yeah.
And so I know for me early on and even now, I mean, we talk about this often. We can sometimes lose sight of the goals and the dreams that God has given us because we're so focused on serving the other person. So we've had to come to kind of a middle ground on both of those seeds that God has planted in our lives in our hearts throughout our lives, to come and find a place that we could actually continue to develop those and invest in those.
Yeah. And I do want to elaborate a little bit on just we're so busy serving the other person. Like, it's not because we're always thinking, oh, what can I do? And like, just in that line, I think sometimes we just get caught up in the really good, responsible things of, well, I should do this, or, like they've been home all day with the kids and they probably need a break. So I should go home. I should. And so in serving, I would say more the family at large rather than just the other person. And again, they're good things, they're responsible things. But just as Chris said, it still is important to take time for you. And I don't feel like that's talked about very much. And regardless of what season of life you're in, regardless of what age your kids are, regardless of whether one person works in or outside of the home, both people work outside of the home, your roles are different. Your strengths are different. The way that you are wired is different. And I personally think one of the ways that we can honor our spouse is by helping protect what they need. Which goes to our first point, which is taking time for you. And I would just want you to kind of share from your opinion, like when you think of like taking time for you, what can that look like?
Well, it's a variety of things. So one, I know we both need individual time away from just daily life to reset.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, we're able to just pause, seek the Lord, and think and pray deliberately about whatever it is. Like, so if there's a big life choice or there's just a little life choice, that gives us time to think about that outside of the daily gift of responsibility that comes
Mm-hmm.
with having a family. Aside from that, it sets aside deliberate time for you to lay out those goals, lay out those dreams, lay out those
things that maybe are stirring in your heart that the Lord keeps bringing.
Yeah, and unless you set aside that time, it's extremely challenging to really just pause and think about it.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I don't like life does not slow down. And so if we don't begin to prioritize that time, if we don't begin to make that time, which is one of the early points that we made in the beginning few videos, if we don't begin to make time for that, then days are going to become weeks, weeks are going to become months and years, and you're going to get down the road and think, well, who am I and where did this go? Or who is this person? And it sounds drastic, but every day is a gift. And if all that we have today, then, what can we do today? And I want to bring in then to our lead in then to our second point, which is it is hard to pour from an empty cup. One of my favorite analogies is actually, if as you've traveled on an airplane, you have heard the analogy of the oxygen mask or the example that's given. But I think of it so much as a mom with young kids, that you cannot give somebody else the oxygen mask if you have not put on yours first. And that is a really good example for me as a mom to say, while it is really good for me to continue to pour into my kids, while it is really good for me to, find ways to bless, pursue, serve my husband, if I am running on empty, it is to my kids' betterment, it is to my husband's betterment, it is to the betterment of our family and our season, whatever, at large, for me to raise the flag and let them know I need to take a minute. And so for Chris, he really loves going on runs. For me, I do love working out as well, but I also love just going to a coffee shop by myself. I love writing and creating. I love doing photography. And so those are just different ways that those are not his love languages. Those are not things that fill his tank. If he wants to come to a coffee shop with me, great as well, but it's different. And so I think even celebrating those differences is good.
Yeah. And along the same lines, when you have a career, for instance, it's very natural, I think, to focus on the career you're in, because that's your career. That's what makes the money.
Yeah.
But what if God's giving you other things in your heart that you're continuing to develop simultaneously?
Yeah.
We talk about concurrent courses of action in the military, to concurrent lines of effort to work towards a desired end state. And so what's your end state as a person, as an individual, or as a couple, a collective vision together that you're working to achieve? So while you're working in your day job or your career, that doesn't mean that that's everything that you necessarily have to devote all your time to. There's still the ability to develop and take time to pause and think about what else is God stirring in your heart that may be outside of your current career path. Yeah. So that's something that we think about often, we pray about often, and we're able to do that because we take a step back and we invest in each other, or invest in ourselves too.
Yeah. And which I think leads perfectly into the third and final takeaway for this video is don't make the decision for your spouse. I am so guilty of this, and I know you are as well.
I mean, definitely you are. Yeah, I agree 100%. I am too.
Yeah, we are. So what does this mean? What does this look like for us?
So it's very well-meaning. You take into account, like we talked about in earlier videos, you take into account the whole day, you take into account the metrics of just the culture and the environment from whatever the case may be, a tough day with the kids, tough day at work, and you just make the assumption that you're making the best decision for your spouse without ever asking them or thinking to talk to them about it. Yeah. Although that's well-meaning, that may not really be what is the best for the situation or for your couple or for the couple as a whole. So, like we talked about earlier, I mean, it's not necessarily about you. And so if you think that the couple, or like in my case, if I think that Danielle, whatever's bothering her is about me and only me, and I'm making a decision based on that, I'm not giving her the opportunity to have a vote on that. And so I try not to make that decision for her. I'm not always successful, but sometimes it's beneficial to anticipate and lean forward and make those choices. But then there's other times that she kind of wants a vote, or I kind of want to vote in the matter.
Because here's then what can happen is that if you are already running near empty, and then the day continues, the night continues, and then something happens and you are met, this never happens, not with you, but like with me. If it were to happen, it's only me, but I'm just saying, but in my experience, then if I'm running on empty and then I just like hit a breaking point that I just want to explode, and it just seems totally out of left field for him, then he'll just be like, what's wrong? Like, where is all this coming from? And now
builds up, and
so then I have this decision then that I say, well, I'm just having a really hard day and I wanted to take the night off, but now it's past tense, so I didn't. And he'll say, well, why didn't you say anything? Why? I would have happily given you the night off.
You raise the flag.
And so then the response is, well, I just knew you had a hard day and blah, 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 blah. But now we're like, it begins this whole downward spiral
Prolong the
process.
whole conflict.
Yes. And so what I intended to do for good has actually now negatively impacted. Yes. And now I feel bad. And now there has been some nights, I'm just going to be real with you. There has been some nights that my outburst, and again, this never happens for Chris. I'm just saying me, my outburst then has like not ruined the night, but we now are having to deal with something and recover from it where we're like, we have to
Instead
unpack
of us
it.
having to deal and address one challenge or conflict, now we have 2 or 3 because we didn't.
Yeah,
instead
of simply unplugging, decompressing, and enjoying our evening together, we are now working through just a conflict or just a misunderstanding because I didn't give him a vote, because I didn't communicate with him, and because I assumed an answer. So I don't know if that happens in you, but it happens with us. Again, only with me, never with him. But it is important to invest in you. It's important to take time for you. And it is important to just find ways that fill your cup. Even if you don't know what those ways are that you recharge, just begin to take action steps towards that and make time for it. And don't make the decision for your spouse. Raise the flag, ask the questions, and just start showing up in that way. Anything else to add?
No, I think you
I
think you wrapped us up pretty
well, I'll just take all 3 of them.
We'll go ahead and incorporate that in our discussion later. I'm just kidding. I love you. All right. Thank you. I'm Chris. This is Danielle. We'll see you for the next one.